First things first. Who are you? What's your role? And where do you work?
Hi, I'm Aviv Shukron, VP of Product at Komodor.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you are keeping an eye on?
So I think the 3 emerging, I wouldn't say tools, but trends are probably the AI SRE, which now seems to be rising. Very exciting stuff. A lot of new companies emerging in that space. The other thing is probably checkpointing and restoring of state. This is something that's now wrapping up, and that kind of leads me to cost optimization, which is probably the first use case for that. And we see a lot of companies doing that as well.
One of our guests, Niels, believes that Karpenter is way faster in scaling up and provides more flexibility in deciding node resources. What's been your experience with different auto-scaling solutions?
So there are multiple different autoscalers. Obviously, there are the more traditional ones, the open source ones, the cluster autoscaler, Karpenter. Then you have like different vendors like Haas, Spot.io, so forth. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to efficiency. And we've seen Karpenter being as much efficient as the commercial ones. You can have very dynamic approach towards their scaling. And actually, there are other tools that also enhance that and allow you to be much more proactive with your decision making. So I would say Karpenter is probably my choice.
Another guest of ours, Thibault, warned that auto-scaling needs to be finely tuned. If it starts to fail, you'll probably experience significant issues. How do you approach the risks of auto-scaling in production?
So I think what some of the people don't understand is that reliability and cost are 2 sides of the same coin, and you have to balance the 2. What we've seen a lot is people implementing auto-scaling, but don't really understand the reliability side of things. A lot of scaling operations then bring down applications entirely, and they don't really understand, they don't have visibility to it. So it's very important to have observability on those kinds of situations to make sure that you have the best of 2 worlds.
And another guest of ours, Jorge, argued that Kubernetes-based scaling solutions like Keta offer advantages over traditional monitoring tools like Prometheus, especially regarding responsiveness. How do you auto-scale workloads in Kubernetes? What metrics do you use? And are there any tips and tricks that people should know?
So I think over the different metrics, it's more about how do you create an holistic scaling approach. How do you use VPA and HPA as one? How do you make sure that you have that you're handling spice correctly, but you don't have waste, right? So it's very in that space that you need to find something that's going to be more holistic in your approach. Obviously, you can choose different metrics like latency on one end and then CPU and memory on the other end. But I think it's not enough. It's more about choosing the right policy and strategy for your workloads.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old last year. What should we expect in the next 10 years?
So I think the first few years were about provisioning. How can we make provisioning easier? How can we spin up more environments? I think now the main problem is the day 2 operations. I would expect more simplicity around that space. More specifically, because there are so many ecosystem tools, how can we consolidate that? How can we manage that as an organization and actually get the benefits of Kubernetes and not just the toil?
What's next for you?
So we are basically going into more streamlined operations, which very much align with what we talked about here. It's going to be more about automated root cause analysis, automated cost optimization, and basically streamlining operations while we do so.
How can people get in touch with you?
So obviously get into Commodore website, ping me on LinkedIn. I'm always available.